Welcome to Strider Tree Gear. Today I will be talking about the Petzl Eject. It's a new release from Petzl. It's a double rope / single rope canopy anchor that can be retrievable pretty easily. It has this nice strap for retrieval so that it's less likely to get caught in the union. And I'm going to be comparing it a little bit to the 2010 rope guide from ART. Very similar, very comparable devices. They perform essentially the same function, but there's some pros and cons. There's a little bit of a difference in how they function. I'm going to point that out and you can decide for yourselves which is the best double rope anchor. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this, find it useful. Thanks to Petzl for sending me this. I've been playing with it over the last couple of months, trying to get my sense of how I like it or not, and I gotta say, it's a winner. So here we go. So the Petzl Eject is a pulley, essentially, a pulley saver device that allows you to reduce the friction on the cambium layer for your moving rope system. It can also be used as an anchor for the single rope system if you just use a stopper knot, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. It installs really easily. You got to do it from inside the tree, but it's not difficult. You slide the soft end through the union you're going to be hanging from. And now this little device shows right on the face of it which way you're supposed to route it. It basically never comes off on this side, so there's generally only one way for it to go through. The point of this device is similar to the camming action on the ART device in that it makes the load, the entire load, to depend on the one leg of this sling. So it gives you some ability to reposition it a little bit higher or a little bit lower in the tree. You can even route it between two different unions if you have this up over here. But the idea is to have this side be slack and this side be tensioned, and then this keeps it from actually choking. Well, it allows it to choke a little bit, but not too hard up against the tree. And then here you've got your device installed. Now you take your rope, it tells you which way to route it. You want the eye to be on this left-hand side, and it's really important that you do that. If you have the eye switched, it will not release. You'll just end up with your rope stuck up in the tree and you'll have to go climb back up to get it. So you push up this little spring-loaded mechanism, run the eye of the rope through the pulley. Now you're on. And me, when I'm climbing, I always install my retrieval ball on the end of this, just in case I forget when I go to pull my rope out, that it'll just be there. It'll live there. I can still fit a carabiner through there. It doesn't really get in my way. And then you would have your own climb system on underneath that. And you're going to be climbing on a pulley. It's nice, a little less work on your arms, a little less fatigue when you're working. If you're going to be double roping, this is a great way to do it. Now, on retrieval, there's a couple things to note. Well, actually, let me point out the single rope. So if you're climbing up and down a lot, you're moving around the canopy a lot, but you're not climbing through unions, you don't need redirects, a moving rope system can still be more efficient than SRT at times. But let's just say you got to go climb way out on a limb, you're going to go through two redirects, you don't want to deal with this. Maybe you've got an akimbo or a unisender that you can switch between moving rope or double rope real easily. All you got to do to make this a single rope system is tie a stopper knot on the eye side of your rope, and you can pull it up to the device. And I would also put a carabiner here to lock that off. But the idea is that stopper knot's not going to slide through here. And even if it did, it's not going to free this. It can't free it. And then you can climb on this side just like you normally would. And when you get back to where you were going, you can pull out your stopper knot, pull it back down to yourself, undo it, and you'll still be able to retrieve your anchor. The cool thing about this particular anchor, one of the things I really like about it, is that this unlocking mechanism right here can only be released once the rope has completely come out of the device. So if you end up, let's just say you've got a knot in here somewhere, or you go to pull it out and maybe it gets stuck, nothing is going to release this as long as your rope is in here. So there's some measure of safety and redundancy in that. But when you're ready to retrieve it, you let it loose, you start pulling on this guy, it comes through. Now, as I pull this out, this lifts into place, and I'm gonna do it kind of slowly here. Once this eye pulls through, that locking mechanism can drop down below the level of this little slot, and then the throw ball pulls on it right here and pushes it my left, your right, and that's what releases this little catch. So it's just the slightest bump, it doesn't take much, and then that releases. That releases really completely. So this generally won't get stuck where your tie-in point is. Where I have seen these things get stuck is when you're pulling it out, and after it releases from the union, it drops and then wedges itself with this maybe on the other side of a union like that. Now that's bad news bears, because that can get stuck pretty badly. And so you gotta be a little bit careful on retrieval. A lot of guys, and I'd probably recommend this, a lot of guys will tie a piece of throw line on the end of their climb line when they go to retrieve it. So that, I'll try and demonstrate that here, at least in principle. So that once you pull this thing out, I'm gonna set it all back up here. No, I won't be able to do it. Anyway, if you tie a throw line on the end of this, when you pull this out and it releases, instead of this whole object falling down to the ground, you'll still have a throw line hanging out here. So you can pull the anchor all the way to the ground and use the throw line to manipulate it around unions. And then once you get this back to the ground to you, you untie the throw line and pull the throw line out the other way. And that's a good way to keep your aluminum anchor from just crashing to the ground and breaking on a rock or taking a large impact, because that's how these things break. This aluminum is strong, but it's not designed for that kind of impact with the ground. So in function, the Petzl Eject is a really similar device to the rope guide. I would say it has the advantage of this really thin eye being the part that goes around the tree and pulls through the union. This, while it is designed with this little bump here and the taper and the aluminum ring, I've very rarely had this get stuck, but I'm also very intentional about putting in unions that aren't real snug. Whereas this one is not gonna have any trouble pulling out of even a relatively tight union. That's probably the key advantage of this system, is just the fact that this is so streamlined and soft that I would be surprised to see this ever get stuck on retrieval. Unless, like I said before, this whole thing were to drop on its way down and fall on the wrong side of a union. Now, it does have a couple of disadvantages to the rope guide system. The rope guide system is remarkably simple and robust. While this has some springs and some mechanism in here that could potentially get gummied up with enough sap, and I mean it would have to be a lot of sap because this is fairly open and simple, I could imagine it happening. This has no spring-loaded mechanisms at all. It's got one cam in here that functions as the locking mechanism to adjust how much slack you've got out. And it's got this pulley, and that's it. It's such a simple device. If I want more slack, I can pull it out here. I've actually got the rope guide twin line too, which has got the much longer line. I can put it around any size trunk. There's just nothing to it, right? In function, they're nearly identical. There we go, it's installed. I installed this from up in the tree. The rope guide twin line I can install from the ground, but I don't generally. If I carry this up with me in the tree, functions the same. Theoretically, I could do the same rope stopper knot to make it a single line anchor, right? It would still work that way, and then I could retrieve it and use the retrieval ball. Like I said, the one downside of this system is going to be this eye when it pulls through. Generally it does, but it could potentially, because of the width of that, get stuck. It's got this little plastic piece that tends to bump it. As you can see, it tends to bump it even from fairly tight unions. So like I said, I haven't had too many issues with it. But anyway, really similar in function. In use, I would say they probably feel identical. The main difference and what might be worth considering about this device is the fact that that is just not going to get stuck. And for those of you who have had anchors get stuck, that's a big deal. 90% of the time, if I'm not using one of these in a double rope situation, it's because I'm worried it might get stuck and I don't want to climb back up there. In fact, that's very often why I use a single rope anchor more often than why I use single rope instead of double rope, is oftentimes I don't want it to get stuck. I don't want my anchors to get stuck, and I don't want to deal with it. So on treestuff.com, Amazon, other places, this Petzl runs about $250 and the rope guide runs about $380. Of course, it was the first and they did a beautiful job, but Petzl has figured out a way to create a very similar device for quite a bit less. At that price point, I'd probably go with the Petzl Eject, despite the slight increase in complexity. It's really a well-designed, well-put-together device. It's actually rated to be able to take 2 people in a pickle, and that's a useful thing to know. It's got all your EN safety ratings, minimum braking strength 25 kilonewtons. Like, it's a well-thought-out tree climbing device. So that's my take on the Petzl Eject. For those of you guys who are using double rope very often, I recommend it. I like it. You can go back and forth between double rope MRS pretty easily, stationary rope system. And this is a great way to save the cambium on your trees and to have a little more efficient climbing experience by using this pulley. So thank you for joining me here at Strider Tree Gear. If there's other gear you'd like to see reviewed or you're curious about, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to review it. And stay safe out there. Catch you next time.